I'll admit, I was Spinderella. I was spinning a lot. So one of the companies I work a lot for is Aston Martin, technically Aston Martin the Americas, the North American arm. And I do several things for them. So I'm a driving instructor, which means I demonstrate cars and teach folks how to drive them at speed. Product specialist, so I can present the cars and talk in depth about the cars. And I'm even a translator for them. So when they've got training at their headquarters in Irvine and they bring up folks from Central and South America that don't speak English, techs that they're teaching new stuff, I come in to translate essentially. And it's weird because growing up as a Spanish speaker is my first language. Obviously I speak Spanish, but when you start talking about cam position sensors and electrical systems in cars, I didn't grow up saying those terms. So a lot of these things I've had to look up to, how do I say that in Spanish? So it's an interesting thing doing the translation, but that's one of the things I do for them. And then the other thing I do for them, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about, is level 2 training. So at Aston Martin, there are 5 levels of training. Level 1 is you can start and operate a car within a parking lot. Level 2 is you can drive the car on the streets, a car owned by Aston Martin. Level 3 is demonstrating the car on a racetrack. Level 4 is on the Mira Proving Grounds in the UK. And Level 5 is Nürburgring development testing. And so I train anybody in North America that works for the company on level 2 training. It used to be that a gentleman named Alan White would fly in from the UK and train the people, but as they hire more people and the company was growing, that became, not very cost effective. And so they decided to train me. So Alan White came out and trained me on training other people. So part of the class that I teach that Alan White came out and taught me, that I teach for the level 2 certification, is about basic roadcraft. How do you position the car on the road? How do you pay attention to signs, that kind of thing. And the last slide that I sort of created and turned into my part of my presentation is what I'm going to tell you about now. And it's about trusting your instincts. We work a program in Crested Butte, Colorado, or used to work a program in Crested Butte, Colorado. Used to be being probably pretty key to the story for 3 years, 2014, 15, and 16, called Aston Martins on Ice. And as the name implies, it's winter driving. So teaching folks how to drive these Aston Martins on snow and ice. And the program starts in the spring because we go out and lay out the track from this gentleman who rents us the property and put up stakes so that when it snows, we start prepping the track. And there's a big process to getting the track ready to be driven on. But we get out there and these folks pay a lot of money. I think it's like $10,000 a day to come out and spend some time with us. And it's an amazing program because you're driving these cars on snow and ice. But my point in including this last slide where it's trusting your instincts is what this story is about. To tell the full story, I'm going to go to the final year of the program, 2016. That particular year, the agency that puts on this program for Aston rented the track out 2 weeks prior to Mazda. And Mazda had just launched the MX-5 Miata, or it had recently been launched. And they also rented, along with the track, us instructors. So we're out there doing a program for a week for Mazda, and we're part of the program, as pretty much any program that I work for car manufacturers, at the very end, we do what we call hot laps. And that's when we put the participants in the passenger seat, we turn off all the stability and traction control systems in the cars, and we show them what the car can do. And being in Miatas and having worked the program 2 years prior in Astons, it's funny how there's this mental switch that happens because as a driver, you're like, well, if I wad up this Miata, I can probably afford the 30 grand, the 25 grand, or it got cost, to buy it. And so you're less concerned, kinda. You still don't want to crash because it's bad for your reputation and all that stuff. But you know that if you crash, it's not the end of the world. If you crash an Aston, a $300 and some thousand Aston, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to deal with. And so we do this program for Mazda. At the end of the week, we've been given hot laps for a week, and the hot laps have gotten more and more brave, I'll say. We start, instead of running separately, we're now running together. We're doing tandem drift, and then you have, in some cases, all 6 of us instructors, nose to tail, sliding these cars around. And it was amazing. It was amazing from our perspective. The participants loved it as well. Then some of the guys started getting even more brave and doing like 360s down the straight, recovering, or doing a 360 right into a drift into the first turn, which was this big sweeping turn. It was amazing, and it was a lot of fun. And the MX-5 Miata is an awesome car to drive. Anybody that thinks, chick car, whatever, amazing car. Yes, it's slow, but it's fun to drive. So fast forward, we then had a week off, everybody returned home, and then we came back to the track, and now we're doing the Aston program for the final year in 2016. It's funny how we all start sort of semi-conservative on the hot laps the first day of the program, but by day 3, our memories of what we were just doing a couple weeks prior in the Miatas start coming back to, and a couple guys start taking more liberties, and before you know it, we're all doing 360s down the back straight in $300,000 Astons, right? And you could see that the Aston executives were getting more and more nervous when we would go out to give hot laps. And they're seeing some of us run closer together and taking more chances. And so the program ends and we survive. Nothing happens. We did our hot laps. The participants left super happy. And the cool thing about the hot lap at the end is that the participants have done all their driving, but you leave them on this high because we put them in the car with us and slide the car around and they just leave like super pumped up. Most of the executives have now left and gone back to the hotel. Some of them are receiving the cars at the hotel. So our job now is to drive the 20-some cars that we had there back to the hotel, which is about 15 minutes away. There are transporters waiting. We help them load them on. We go get shuttled back to the track and bring the cars back. And so we're wrapping up and the film crew comes over, and there was 3 of us that happened to be on site at that point. The other 3 instructors were shuttling cars. And the film crew comes over and says, hey, Emile, we want to do a couple more shots. Do you guys mind driving? And this is the part that I tell in my story when I'm presenting the class, and it's about trusting your instincts. My instincts at that time were absolutely not, we don't need to do it. The film crew had been there the entire week, had gotten amazing footage. I'd seen some of the selects. It was awesome. Aston people were happy. Like I said, they'd left. But you don't want to say no. And also you kind of don't want to look like that guy. You don't want to be the chicken, right? Kind of. And so you're like, it was more like I just didn't want to say no to them. I'm like, all right, what do you guys need? And the film crew said, we want 3 cars out there, and they just happened to be the 3 that were left. V12 Vantage, a V8 Vantage Roadster, the GT, and the Vanquish that was there. And so as we're figuring out, the 2 other instructors, 2 great friends of mine, some of my best friends, make a beeline to the cars. And as I turn around and I walk out, what am I left with? I'm left with the V12 Vantage, arguably the trickiest one. V12, shortest wheelbase, not quite as much steering lock, but I had been in that car all week. I'd been given hot laps in that car all week. I love that car. So at first I was like, of course they leave me with this. First guy there, I'm sure, jumped in the Vanquish, longest wheelbase, torquey, smooth V12, and mine was a manual. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We get out there and the camera crew was in, I forget what kind of SUV, but they're in an SUV, 4-wheel drive, studded tires, and they're filming out of the back of this thing. So already you're like, you've gotten all the footage. This can't be that amazing, the footage that you're gonna get now, but whatever. We don't wanna say no, so we're out there doing it. And so what happens, we go out and do the first lap, and the guy that's directing the thing gets on the radio, and my buddy Stefan, one of the other drivers, is driving the camera car, so I forgot there was 4 of us there. Guy gets on the radio and goes, guys, we're gonna pick up the pace a little bit. And keep in mind, now this is the end of the program, so we've been out there for about a week, and the track, the grip in snow and ice, those of you watching that haven't driven in snow and ice, you look for snow when you're in those conditions, because snow is grip. Snow has a ton of grip, and ice does not. It sounds pretty obvious. And so throughout the week as we're giving hot laps, we're looking for the edges of the track where there's still some snow, because that's where the grip is, and the ice is no grip on the ice. So now we've worn through the snow, and if it snowed the night before, then we have fresh powder at the beginning of the day, but we wear through that as well. It's the end of the last day. The track is basically an ice track. It's no longer a snow and ice track, it's an ice track. And so we're putting, sliding the cars, nose to tail, 3 of us, completely sideways, but 12 miles an hour, maybe 20 miles an hour, 0 traction. So the guy asked us to speed up a little bit, and I'm like, we kind of can't, but okay, so the car starts pulling away, we're trying to go a little more quickly. And I'll admit, I was the guy. So we come around and I spin, run out of talent, run out of steering lock, bad combination, I spin around. And now my big concern is Matthew, one of my friends right behind me, can he get around me? And he was in the Vanquish. And as soon as I see that he avoids me, the next car has even more time. So no worries, another friend of mine, and he avoids me. So I'd spin. So we get back together, we start running again, and then Matthew would spin, or Ram, one of us would spin. And I'll admit, I was Spinderella. I was spinning a lot. My instincts were telling me like, stop, what are you doing? Just put an end to this. At any point, any one of the 3 of us could have picked up the radio and said, hey guys, the conditions are treacherous, we're done. And we didn't. So you know where this is going. I would spin, the guys would avoid me. Matthew would spin, they would avoid me. We kept switching the order. So here comes the incident. I'm the first car. My friend Matthew's behind me. My friend Ram's behind him. We're coming around, final sweeping turn. So it's like a faster big sweeper right behind the camera car. And I start to run out of steering lock, and I've got a lot of angle, and I'm coming out of it. I'm trying to hold it there, but I can come at the lock stops. This is it. And here comes the car, and it starts to rotate. I had enough time to pick up the radio and say, spin, spin, spin. That's how slowly all of this is happening, right? As I'm coming around, I look, and my main concern is the first car behind me, the Vanquish. And I look, Matthew aborts his slide, avoids me, no problem. And here comes my buddy Ram, and I see him coming, and he's not aborting his slide. And I'm like, okay, the first car missed me, but he's still sliding, and we kind of locked eyes. And I just remember watching it in slow motion. In hindsight, I probably didn't have time. It probably happened faster than I think. But in hindsight, I probably had enough time to hit the reverse button and try to get some traction and back out of the way. But I was just incredulous to what I was seeing happening in front of me. And sure enough, I watched him in slow motion slide. So I had spun and was facing them. slide right into my car. Two Astons coming together, never a good thing. Boom, big impact, no airbags because again, the speeds were relatively low, but you still touched two Astons. And I just remember thinking, what the, like, how did that happen? Later on, talking to Steph, my other buddy who was driving the camera car, Steph, Matthew, myself, all do a lot of camera, car-to-car work for TV commercials and that kind of thing. We have a lot of experience following folks. Ram less so, but having said that, out of all of us there, the six of us, the guy with the best car control was him. He is a super talented driver. Former WRC driver, the only American signed by ProDrive. He's the man. And I remember talking to him just like being like, I couldn't believe that he'd crashed into me. Again, I'm the one that spun, but still. And he's like, I thought I had it. And I'm like, that's not good enough. What do you mean you thought you had it? And I love the guy to death. He's one of my favorite human beings on the planet. So it's not like I could get mad at him. And again, I'm the one that spun, but it doesn't change the fact that we've crashed two Astons. Now we have to make the call. Oh, by the way, we crashed two cars. The head of training for Aston had become a good friend of mine. We're neighbors, we barbecue together, that kind of thing. And he's the one I have to make the call to. So I make the call. And I remember him saying, obviously he's busy tying up, whatever, getting the cars on the transporter and tying up the program. And he's like, yeah, that's not funny, Emile. And I'm like, no, Scott, we crashed two cars. And I hear the pause, the long pause on the phone. And he goes, tell me you're joking, because it's not a funny joke. And I said, I wish I was joking. We crashed two cars. And again, a long silence on the phone, followed by things you never want to hear, right? You dumb, all deserved. And you got to take it. So I'm on the phone listening to this. And then he passes the phone to the marketing director, who's really, it's his program, right? And this guy, he starts in, and again, we crashed two cars. We got to take it. So we're listening to it. And you're still like, you're sick to your stomach. And you look at the cars and they're not bad, but again, they're Astons. So it's going to be expensive, and it was very expensive. And so we had to get back to the hotel with the cars, and those cars had to get loaded, and we had a meeting, and we again had to be beaten down, and we took it because we deserved it. It was a horrible ending to a couple of really great work weeks. The one with Mazda, we had a week off between, and then the week with Aston. But the bottom line, the reason I decided to tell the story to the folks that I teach in this L2, level 2 driving permit class is to trust your instincts, right? As humans, I think that we've forgotten to really trust our gut. But in this case, it was so obvious to me, and I just didn't listen. And had I listened, it would have been the end of a couple of great weeks, and the program might have continued. So later on, a couple of years later, maybe about a year ago, I remember sitting with my buddy Scott, we're drinking a couple of beers, and I said to him, the head of training for Aston Martin, and I said to him, hey, by the way, that crash in Crested Butte, is that the reason the program got canceled? And I'll never forget her response. He just looks at me and goes, well, it certainly didn't help.
Homeowners insurance may just seem like some boring thing that you have to get a mortgage, but it can be a surprising way to actually save a lot of money. Policy Genius is your advocate to do that. They shop your policy and your insurance needs amongst all the major carriers and find you the best deal. In fact, every time it renews, Policy Genius does it all over again. They check everybody else, they make sure you're getting the best deal, and if there's a better deal out there, they switch you for free. Policy Genius can also bundle your homeowner's policy with your car insurance policy and save you even more. Policy Genius has saved their combined auto and home insurance customers an average of $1,127 a year. So visit the link in the description below, tell them a little bit about yourself and your property, and they'll tell you if you're getting the best deal. Be sure to thank them for their support of VINwiki.